Hello, good afternoon, everybody. I was just talking to Laura outside and saying they gave us the post-lunch slot. And so I might have had something to do with the lunch delay. So now everybody has to kind of pay attention. You don't really have food just yet.
Eat away, though.
Help us.
No worries. We'll just talk to ourselves.
Awesome. Well, thank you all very much for being here. I promise this will be an interesting conversation. I want to start by welcoming Alison to our midst today. Alison Giordano is Vice President of Global Sponsorships and Consumer Marketing at MasterCard. And we are going to talk about, Alison has an amazing history and journey that she's had with regards to sponsorships and the role that sponsorships play in building a brand, the role that it plays in your media and marketing mix. And Alison has spent 18 years in the world of MasterCard, so talk about long tenure, and has truly global perspective. Apart from the US, Alison has spent time in Asia. She's worked in Singapore. She's run consumer marketing in Japan. And so I think we've all got a lot to learn from her, and this will be a really interesting conversation. So welcome, Alison, and thank you for being here.
Appreciate it.
So maybe actually to get started, Alison has a really specific focus in her role on sports and entertainment. And to my envy, and I think to the envy of many people in this room, she has just come back from the Women's Rugby World Cup in New Zealand. Fantastic final game. Alison, tell us a little bit about that maybe.
No, absolutely. So thank you to Brand Innovators for having me. I'm a little jet lagged still because I got home, 24 hours ago. So for those of you that follow rugby or for those of you that don't, women's rugby, women's sport in general is on this huge trajectory. And it's so exciting and really thrilling to see, but there's so much more work to be done. But being in New Zealand with being able to attend the final, see the environment within Auckland and the surrounding area, seeing fans from around the world, families with girls, boys, wearing women's jerseys was a beautiful thing to see. We saw just like you started to see this summer, for those of you that follow international football, you saw a Champions League final, Olympique Lyonnais Feminine winning with huge sellout crowd. You saw the Euros. Over the summer, you saw matches in Barcelona filling up stadiums. So I really feel like women's soccer has really been a driver and very visible of this rise. But being in Auckland, in New Zealand, and seeing the Black Ferns, which is the New Zealand national team, playing England all the way to the wire, and having a full stadium, which you normally see with the men's team. It was the first time they've ever sold out, Eden Park for a women's match. It's the largest audience you've ever seen for women's rugby around the world. It was just really wonderful. So hopefully some of you got to tune in. It was on very late at night here at 2 a.m., but it was, they saw record attendance, and then they saw record viewership. It was one of the most highly rated program or entertainment in New Zealand ever. They had over 1 million viewers, and then we're still waiting for the global numbers, but it's right up there with, hopefully you guys saw National Women's Soccer League as well. The championship 2 weekends ago in DC hit almost 1 million in audience across the nation, which is really fantastic.
What an amazing experience. So if we think about that, and you think about the state of women's sport today, it's slowly gathering that attention, right? There's so much, we're reading about it, we're hearing more about it, more brands are getting into this space. But this is something that MasterCard has been doing for a while. This is a strategy that you've developed over several years. You yourself personally have been driving this and personally invested in this. Tell us a little bit about that journey. Tell us about your journey at MasterCard, how you got into this space, and women's sport in specific, how this became what it is, the driver that it is for MasterCard today.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I've had the privilege to, join MasterCard, years ago to work in sponsorship marketing. And, we are one of the largest investors in sport and entertainment globally. And I've had the opportunity to, work across everything from the FIFA World Cup, the Rugby World Cup, the Open Championship, Champions League finals, Major League Baseball, PGA Tour. So it's really been an amazing journey around the world. But we've, I think, where it started was it made sense. We were invested in men's sport. We said we're going to be invested in women's sport as well. So it was sort of a natural, extension for us years back. But I can't take the credit. I'm definitely driving it and partnering within our organization to make this happen. But this also came from our leadership in terms of we identified a few years back and put a stake in the ground internally that gender equity was going to be important. Now, granted, we had already been investing in women's sport, but not to the extent where we are now. And we saw our leadership from our vice chair to our CFO take a stand, and also with our former CEO, Ajay Banga, to really put a stake in the ground and focus on not only gender equity internally with our employee base, and at the time that meant equal pay for our employee base, but also what we could do in society to sort of right the balance when you look at microfinancing and you look at just financial inclusion in general and the opportunities that women small business owners and girls have in terms of education and access to credit around the world is just not, there's just not parity there. So there's a huge opportunity. If we can right size that, all of society can really flourish, and the ecosystem can kind of rise together. And then on the commercial side, which is this is not a not-for-profit that we're in it for, is really how can we bring products and services forward that were built from diverse thinking, diverse perspectives. How can we align with like-minded organizations that are looking to progress the world? And that then translates to our marketing strategy and who we invest with, where we invest, how we go to market. And with all of that, it was a natural extension for us to take our gender strategy and then really proactively apply it to our portfolio, which we've been doing the past few years.
That's what everybody should strive for, right? Trying to get that intersection of what you can do, how you can be culturally relevant, but do it in a way that's relevant for your brand and find the opportunity from a business perspective to make a business case for it. So thinking about that a little bit, when you think about sponsorships within the world of MasterCard, where does it sit within your broader marketing strategy? What is the role that it plays? Do you think about it as media? How do you think about sponsorships as a tool to drive marketing and build your brand?
Sure. So we're very excited that this is our 25th anniversary of Priceless. We celebrated October 25th, and I'm going to be continuing that celebration. When you think about where Priceless started, which is our brand platform, it started with simply an advertisement, a TV spot in the United States that actually helped launch our Major League Baseball relationship in 1997. And it featured a son and his father at a game. And really the insight of experiences matter more than things for us was born there. And I think, now and over time and now more than ever, I feel like that insight, is still relevant and current. And Priceless has evolved over that time, but really at the center of it is this idea of creating connections, enabling experiences, and helping people realize their passions and get close to their passions. Sponsorships within our marketing mix is at sort of the center. It's that ideal location to really access people's passions and be able to bring them to life. How we bring that to life is, through through an integrated approach, right? So I partner Tracy Spiegelman. She's often has spoken at Brand Innovators, and our team on the media side, our team in our social team, our creative team. We're really, it's just one integrated team to bring all of this to life. Depending on the sponsorship, there's definitely huge media opportunity. You have embedded brand, when you look at Champions League matches, right? You look at big events like the Open Championship or Rugby World Cup, your brand is front and center, and it's during programming. So huge media exposure. But there's also, for us, we go a step further and we, build really strong relationships with those partners, and really try to create unique ways to bring the experience as close as possible to the fan, giving them truly priceless experiences that you just can't access. So we look at it, a number of different ways, and then we bring those opportunities to life, not only direct to consumer, but we work as a B2B2C brand with issuers or banks that issue cards, but also with merchants all around the world to be able to enable their customers.
Awesome. So when we think about sponsorships, and I think we were talking about it with some of the people here earlier today, there's a lot that you can do. There's a lot out there, right? So, and there are lots of different spaces that you can focus on. You, in your role, focus very specifically on sports and entertainment. How do you evaluate what you should be in, what you shouldn't be in? Because sometimes that's as important for a brand, right? Where you show up versus where you don't show up. Tell us a little bit about the process or the approach that you use to evaluate those opportunities and decide what's a long-term play.
Yeah, no, sure. So it really it's based on the objective and really the need within the organization. So we have relationships, which whether you guys are on the agency side or whether you're on the brand side, you have, and however your business is organized, but we have relationships that are meant to solve sort of, let's say a global opportunity. And that could be, we're trying to reach audiences or similar audiences in multiple markets around the world, a similar fan base, that kind of thing. But there's also objectives that we're trying to achieve, let's say in one market, a certain region, one market, maybe there's a customer that we're looking to engage with or partner with. And we feel that using passion-based marketing is the most strategic way to do that. And we feel like that together, those shared objectives will be most optimally realized. So it really just depends on if we're trying to solve a specific customer opportunity, if it's direct, if it's a consumer play, by market, region, if it's global, if we're looking to engage and bring to life a new product offering that we have. It could be a service. We're much, we're really a technology company. We're much more than I think maybe what the general consumer thinks of us as is payments tech. We've expanded so much over the past 10 years in terms of what we offer, from cyber solutions and just all of the services that we do behind the scenes that actually have nothing to do with payments. So depending on what those needs are and what we're trying to achieve and expose, I think is really how we make those decisions. And then measurement on the flip side are tied to those specific objectives that we've kind of gone into the relationship with.
Absolutely. And that was going to be my next question for you related to measurement. That's a space that I think very often brands struggle with when they think, especially when they think about sponsorships. Measurement is difficult in everything, and it's particularly challenging when it comes to sponsorships, especially because many of these have a long-term build, right? They have to pay off over the long term. So talk to us about how you approach that at MasterCard. How do you show, like, you need to secure budgets for them every year. How do you show short-term impact versus long-term impact?
Yeah, again, I think it goes back to the objective. You have, if you have an investment in something like Champions League, right? Or even the Open, where there's so many facets to the relationship, and media is one of them, right? So if you think about, that value exchange that you're realizing, it becomes a little bit probably easier, at least on the consumer and brand side. Never mind, you might be solving a huge customer opportunity that kind of trumps everything else that you're getting out of the deal, which is great. But I think, depending on what the mix is of assets and offerings, and then how those assets and offerings deliver either throughout the year or during an event window is one way we look at it. So that, especially on the media front, we're able to get, pretty accurate understanding of how our brand, has done, let's say, from leveraging that intellectual property or being featured across a campaign. So again, I think it depends on the objective. We do everything from, let's say, what we would think of as direct to consumer or B2B2C marketing. But there's also, opportunity from on the longer term, we embed our offerings and our solutions and services. So there's often business return as well.
Okay, that's amazing. Looking forward a little bit, if we look into 2023, many of us in this room are probably just finished with business planning or into annual planning for next year. There are a number of headwinds in the economy. We're getting volatile signals from the marketplace. And as marketers, as you think about budgets, as you think about securing, protecting sponsorship budgets for next year, given that this is a long-term play, how do you approach that? How do you build that case? How do you ensure that it doesn't become, something easy on the chopping board because it may not have immediate impact, but has that long-term impact?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's also ensuring kind of your partners internally, whether it be in finance, legal, compliance, all the beautiful things and organizations within the company that we get to work with that not everybody in marketing gets to work with. Understanding, when you take on a sponsorship, what that means, right? It's typically long-term or over multiple years. It typically requires activation dollars versus, you don't just do a deal and then it's sit, right? You can, and that's sort of a lame duck sponsor, but it's not how brands should activate. I think look, there's definitely headwinds. I mean, I feel like a few years ago we probably would have had the same conversation, right? So it's I don't think going into next year is any different than 3 years ago or 5. Like it's being smart about how you're approaching your activation plan, how you're going to be leveraging that intellectual property. Have you aligned it to the business objectives of the organization? Are you able to prove out that you're supporting either an ESG mission and or a specific customer need and or a larger business focus? And I think if you can clearly identify those things, you sort of set yourself up for success in that way. But yeah, I think what you also need to do is really be really thoughtful about your budget and about all the things that you're thinking of doing, and that it's not, you just have to be creative, I think, is also. I feel like tight budgets sometimes create opportunities for a lot of creativity and, really just thinking out of the box, thinking a little bit more scrappy. That's probably what I would suggest. Okay. And that's probably what we'll be doing, just like everybody else.
Everybody else, yes. Awesome. But I'm sure there's a lot of, I think the way you outlined it with structure and aligning to business objectives is the right thing to do and perhaps the strongest case you can build. Alison, you operate in a really interesting space, sports and entertainment. It's where live audiences still are. It's where so much of viewership and consumer engagement still is. You've been a part of so many of these amazing organizations and events across your career. Tell us about probably your fondest memory or something that you are exceptionally proud of that MasterCard did, and that especially something that made you believe, or you can hold up as an example of this sponsorships work in the context of brand building. Like, do you have an anecdote, anything you can share with us?
Yeah, I mean, I think I talked a little bit about the Women's World Cup. I think that was what was so special also, I think, for me and our team was we were the founding partner with Women in Rugby. We were the first partner to sign on for both the Women's World Cup this year as well as 2025, which will be taking place in England. We also brought that same level of resource and creativity to the Women's World Cup that we've done in previous Men's World Cups. With our player of the match, First Sonic Trophy, we worked with a Maori designer and really wanted to connect the culture of the country to this important award that is rewarded to that player who really stands out in each match. And just every aspect of what we did, and then to see the result, to see that we really played a part in bringing this amazing event to life, bringing kind of the exposure to these amazing women who were spotlighted throughout the tournament. Really showed kind of everything that we've done in action, and the team has been just very proud of that work. And then I would say, again, 2 weeks ago, ourselves and other brands like, AB, Ally Bank, Nationwide, Verizon, an amazing group of brands that have come together and stood by the National Women's Soccer League and saw that championship through, and have really, and Deloitte, I should say, all the brands are doing kind of their part. We're really proud of being a Players Association sponsor along with Ally, and really, supporting them and the resources and infrastructure they need with financial training for the athletes and things that, we're able to do in addition to that, B2B2C and B2C marketing, sort of those behind the scenes resources that the league needs and the league is building. And, we're excited to be a part of that and proud that it really is aligned with the value system and the mission we have as a company.
That's amazing. You mentioned this a little earlier about your previous CEO and that commitment driven from the top about supporting equity, not just within the organization, but externally in your marketing as well, which I have to say, I will always remember. I will remember that. That is really interesting approach to it. And it's made me think about whether brands actually do that. But can you tell us a little bit more about how MasterCard approaches DE&I in general, their approach towards diversity, equity? What are some of the programs you're involved in?
Yeah, absolutely. So where Ajay Banga had set out, to have gender equity from a pay perspective within our company, Michael Miebach, who's our current CEO, recently announced that all employees are held to ESG goals. So everyone's comp within the company is attached to reaching ESG goals, which is, I think we're, very much in the lead in that space. So it really puts the entire organization focused on that. I'm thrilled that outside of my sponsorships role, we have different steer codes that are really driving some of these mission-oriented objectives forward. Gender equity being one of them, both, again, internal society and on the commercial side. So I get to sit and work across the organization to help drive that forward. And then I represent integrated marketing and communications globally, and then work with all of the regions to ensure they understand what's being done around the world, sharing best practices, seeing where we can kind of bring product and marketing together to really make some impact on the commercial side. But then we also work closely with the society side, and we have a program called Girls for Tech, which is focused on reaching 5 million girls by 2025 with STEM education. So we go into schools, and we have schools come to us all around the world, and we leverage our employee base to train and show how STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math is super fun. And what we've been able to do is bring our sponsorships to life in partnership with that education program and do soccer, golf, tennis, and rugby themed curriculums where the girls not only are getting exposed to STEM, but are learning that there's STEM in sport. So they can potentially have jobs not only on the pitch, but off the pitch when they go into, their school and into their professional life. And so it's quite exciting to see that, they learn to understand that, greenskeeping requires engineering, or, to make a golf club requires engineering, or you might be, need math if you're going to be working in the stats department at a team, so understanding all of that really shows, you see all these light bulbs going off. And then they also get to engage usually with an ambassador that we bring along so that there's that connection.
Well, that's great.
Few questions?
I was actually just going to do that. I think we have a few minutes left in case there are any other questions from the audience for Allison.
Priceless, anybody? Here we go.
All right. Cool. Thanks, Ali and Aruna. So one comment, one question. So I'm a big believer that STEM and our education system needs to work better. I don't understand why we don't have foreign language replaced with, programming, especially for all kids, whether they're inner city, girls, whatever. So anyway, that's just a statement I would make on a mic. But the question is, when you do these sponsorships, do you do audience extension? So so for example, when people watch a Super Bowl and Pepsi's, anyone that's been to a Super Bowl and Pepsi was a sponsor, let's say in the past, they would buy a lot of out of home. They'd buy a lot of mobile in that area. Do you kind of take it to the next step? And what's your approach when it comes to leveraging audience extension with those sponsorships?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's largely our integrated approach for all of our major sponsorships. So, I'll use Champions League or even like a previous Rugby World Cup where obviously we're going to be in stadium, you get your investment that the property is delivering, but we would, we'll typically turn on what that fan journey is, because especially if you think about the local market will be talking and leveraging the IP in whatever the media mix is that's going to reach their local audience. And then with a lot of large events, you have a lot of international travelers. You see upwards of 500,000 or more typically enter into a city or a region. And so we would normally reach those different audiences through, natural places that they'll engage in, whether it's through different, travel related mediums is typically where we have shown up previously. But we also go very heavy in digital and social around the world, because only a fraction of people actually go to an event. And really what we try to do is look before, during, and after. And we go after a much broader fan base globally through those activations, and often even bring things to life beyond social into experiential in markets where we know that there's big fan bases that are tuning in. Yeah.
So I'll ask a question. I was thinking about your comment about how long the Priceless campaign has been around. And there's certain campaigns, Apple has one, IBM has one, there's Priceless. But everybody, I come from the agency world, and I've met 25 people who have claimed that was my campaign. Who do you give credit for? Do you give it to McCann? Do you give McCann the credit for the campaign?
So Joyce King Thomas she was just at our office. We did a celebration. She was the former creative director for McCann. She now she's calling herself the grandmother, but she was the mother of Priceless.
There it is. So now we officially know. So
it was, McCann.
When people
McCann
tell you that, they're full of it.
With our CMO at the time. And we had some folks on the brand side who worked with her, but she was the one her and her team created it.
Awesome. Ali, Aruna, you were champs for doing this during lunch. It was a fantastic conversation.
Hopefully everyone enjoyed their salad.
Yeah.
We're going to eat now.
Now hopefully yours is sitting back there waiting for you.
Hopefully we get our food now. Thank you all very